We can now bring in Ariane Bogain, lecturer in French politics at Northumbria University. Good afternoon. Thank you very much for joining us on the program today. Will this latest concession from the French Prime Minister calm things on the streets tomorrow?
No, not at all. These concessions are really designed to shore up wavering MPs. It's not going to calm the street, because the street is only interested in one thing, which is the legal age. They don't want 64. So those concessions are fine, but they're not going to change anything. It's really to shore up the vote in Parliament.
So it seems that there's so much anger out on the streets for each of the strikes we've had. The 2 days of strikes, more than 1 million people across France took to the streets. It seems that people feel that other options were not considered by the government. What are these other options?
Well, there are different ways of reforming pension. One is to increase resources, and that could be, for example, to increase the level of taxation. And there was a poll over the weekend that suggested that 49% of the French would be happy to pay a little bit more in their contribution if it means that they can leave earlier. That wasn't taken into account at all by the government. You can think of using other type of taxation, or you can decide, just like they tried to do in 2019, to actually change the whole system. So to say that 64 is the only solution if you discard all other possible solutions.
Emmanuel Macron, the French president, says he came to office, his program for his second term consisted of reforming the country's pension system. But he fails to remember that a lot of people who voted for him in the second round did so to block Marine Le Pen from coming to power. Is that a major fault, do you think, on his part?
Well, I think that they made, look, any pension reform is unpopular, but they made some really rookie mistakes, in particular in their communication. When you have an unpopular reform, the key is to have one message and one message only that you keep repeating. Instead, we've had contradictory messages. At one point, it was designed to generate more resources to spend on hospital, health, education. Then it became to save the system. Then we had the whole speech about how it's done in the name of fairness, followed by it's a necessary sacrifice. Necessary sacrifice and fairness don't go together. So the message was totally muddled. And as a result, the government has been incapable of convincing the French. They should have stuck to one message only. And in their case, they should have really pressed the point that it's essential to save the system. But they didn't. The message was totally muddled. And if you start talking about fairness, you need to have the facts to back it up. And it was very easy for the opposition to show that this reform is not fair.
The government has ruled out using Article 49.3 in the Constitution to push this reform through. Will the fact that it's willing to do that help them?
Well, they don't want to use that because obviously the message is going to be terrible, that they are brutal, that they push things through. But they don't have a majority, so they need the support of enough MPs from the Republican Party. And we've seen, 3 weeks ago it was fine, but we've seen many MPs wavering because they're feeling the pressure of the street, they're feeling the heat of their constituents. So it might well come down to 2 or 3 votes, and it is dicey at the minute, and that's why Elisabeth Borne is trying to make as many concessions as she can to shore up the vote for the Republican. At this stage, it's too early to say exactly what's going to happen, but they might have to use Article 49.3 if they don't get the necessary votes. That's the problem when you don't have an absolute majority.
Do you think that the government will back down? And if it doesn't back down, the president ends up being a lame duck, doesn't he?
Yeah, if the government somehow backs down, then really it's the end of Macron's presidency. He will be a lame duck unless he decides to dissolve Parliament, which is a whole different kind of political worms. If it does go through, there will be resentment and there will be an electoral cost, and it might even lead to some form of revolt, similar to the Yellow Vest. So, we have 50 days, I think, to see how it all pans out. But as long as the union can keep pressure, as long as they keep the numbers up, it will be very, very difficult, and the government might have to use Article 49.3.
I mean, we do have 2 strikes planned this week.
Yeah.
We have a strike planned tomorrow and one on Saturday. So clearly, the unions are ramping up the pressure on the government.
Yes.
And want to inflict pain to prove their point. Just want to ask you, if the government does succeed in pushing through this reform, increasing the retirement age from 62 to 64 by 2030, when it comes time for the next presidential election, 2027, and we have most likely Marine Le Pen, who throws her hat into the ring, and she runs on the platform that she will reverse the retirement age. Is this a shoe-in for the far right?
Well, I don't know. I can't predict what will happen in 27. But if it does go through, it will be against the population, right? Against public opinion. So a lot of parties are going to benefit from it. Marine Le Pen will, but also NUPES, also the parties on the left, because they are the one who really spearheaded the campaign along with the unions. Marine Le Pen, she's against it. She's not on the street, and she's just waiting really to capitalize on it. So yes, it will help her. It doesn't necessarily mean that she will definitely get in.
Ariane, thank you very much for that. Ariane Bogain,
Thank you.
joining us there from Northumbria University.